I'd like to welcome you to the board meeting of the trustees for the town of Buena Vista, Colorado. It is May 23rd, 2023. The time is 7:02. Please silence your cell phones. Paula, would you do a roll call, please?
Mayor Fay,
Yeah.
Trustee Cobb. Here. Trustee Hinga.
Here.
Trustee McCretsy.
Here.
Trustee Rowe.
Here.
Trustee Swisher.
Here.
Would you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Tonight, I have a proclamation to read. It's called The Longest Day. Whereas Alzheimer's disease is a degenerative and fatal brain disease that causes problems with memory, thinking, and behavior. And whereas it is the 6th leading cause of death in the United States and the only one among the top 10 that cannot be prevented, cured, or even slowed. And whereas an estimated 67,000 Coloradans aged 65 and older are living with Alzheimer's disease, and that number is expected to continue to climb. And whereas the longest day is a time to honor and celebrate all those impacted by Alzheimer's disease while raising funds and awareness for Alzheimer's care, support, and research. And whereas on the longest day, people across the globe are encouraged to support the Alzheimer's Association's mission to eliminate Alzheimer's disease through the advancement of research to provide and enhance care and support for all affected, and to reduce the risk of dementia through the promotion of brain health. Now, therefore, I, Libby Fay, Mayor of the town of Buena Vista, Colorado, do hereby proclaim June 21st, 2023 to be the longest day in Buena Vista and encourage all residents to join in this observance. Thank you. The trustees, and if you picked up an agenda on the front desk, all of you have an agenda to see what we're doing tonight. Are there any changes or additions, deletions from the trustees? Is there a motion to accept the agenda as written? So moved. Thank you. Second? Is there a second?
Second.
And we got Lucrezi and Cobb. And then you also have the consent agenda. And
Mayor Fay,
yes,
we need to take a vote on the.
oh, sorry, yes. All in favor of accepting the agenda as written?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The motion passes. And with regard to the consent agenda, does anyone have questions or changes?
Just a comment on the rec report. I see that the borough race issue has come to a good resolution. Want to congratulate James.
Yeah, okay. Thanks for bringing that up. The resolution was that John Lacroix withdrew his application. So Brad won. Has he been granted a permit, do you know?
That one, yes.
Yeah, okay. So the borough race will go ahead. Okay, is there a motion to pass the consent agenda as included in your packet?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
So we got Rowe and Lucrezi, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The motion passes. Now we go to the public comment portion of our meeting. And It's refreshing to see so many people in the chairs. Sometimes there's nobody there but the reporters.
Don't worry, I'm online, Mayor. Harlan's always there.
So we don't have any public hearings tonight, so everybody who is listed here, looks like are talking about the moratorium, proposed moratorium. And I'll just take you in the order that you signed in. And what I'd like to do after I call your name is to have you go to the podium and first give your name and address. And then Annie will start a timer such that you should stop talking if the timer goes off at 3 minutes. So the first person is Jack Arbus.
Good evening, thank you. My name is Jack Arbus. I'm the president of Synergy Building Solutions. We're a real estate developer out of Denver with some interest here in Buena Vista. So I'm obviously here tonight to express my opinion on this moratorium that's here for discussion and consent, I assume. I think I want to start just by stating some of the obvious, which is the need for housing in this community, in the town, and in Chaffey County. The Chaffey County Housing Needs Update last July stated this very clearly, that finding rentals is very difficult in town here and in the wider county. Rents are rising 43% since 2016. Vacancy rates are below 5%. Home ownership is basically out of reach for 91% of households in the county. COVID exacerbated this tremendously. There are, by Chaffey County estimations, 1,105 homes needed before 2027. 435 of those are now. We need them now just to catch up. Another 670 to keep up with the need after we fulfill 400 plus homes. Workforce housing is essential here, and less than 10% of the overall permits, according to the Chaffey County report, are this type of housing. So this emergency that the town finds themselves in without a planning and zoning staff, I assume is what precipitated this discussion about a 120-day moratorium. And this emergency with the town is going to cause and further exacerbate the housing emergency that already exists here. We've come into town and spent time and money. We're going through our entitlements now on a piece of property to build 108 units. By pushing this out 120 days, essentially what we're talking about here, it's not 120 days. If there's a moratorium, it'll push all the applications out. And best case scenario, I think we're going to cause an additional year, 18 months, maybe 24 months on top of what it would already be to bring affordable housing and rental units to the town and to the county. And I think that's something that this board should consider very seriously. It's already a very difficult situation, and I hope you'll consider turning down this request for a moratorium. We'll have 5 seconds. Okay, that's good. I thank you for your time and hearing me out. And if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you, Jack.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate that. The next person is Scott Simmons. Good evening, Scott.
Good evening, Mayor, Board of Trustees. Just wanted to speak out on the moratorium.
Wait, we need your name and address, and
yes.
you'll start the timer.
Scott Simmons. My address is 318 East Pine Street. So we all know the housing crisis as it was summarized. I won't go into more detail there, but I will add that Poncha Springs is already having a hard time with development with the sewer issue with Salida. So that was our fastest growing community in this county, and now it's restricted. The Chaffey County has put a moratorium on development. which has been extended and continues to be extended, and we don't know when that's going to be lifted. And if Buena Vista adds to that, it's just going to further our housing crisis and limit the potential supply that can come to Chaffey County. At that point, we would have barely any place in Chaffey County that we can develop in the next 120 days. So I would encourage the board to try to implement proactive policy versus a reactive moratorium. What will this 120 days change? Where will we be in 120 days? That will change where we are today. I think there are some solutions that we can come up with. If it's water, we can work together to come up with a solution. If it's resources, there are ways that we can solve those problems without putting this 120-day moratorium on subdivision. What this message sends to investors, lenders, developers is, hey, don't come here. And it creates a place of uncertainty and an already uncertain time. Development is already stressed. It's hard to do housing, whether it's market rate or affordable. It's hard to build here. And this further adds to the difficulty of development in Chaffey County and specifically Buena Vista. So I'd encourage us, let's work together to find solutions. And I don't know if this is the right path forward and to help them solve some of our problems.
Thank you, Scott. And the next person is Carlin Walsh. Evening, Carlin.
Mayor. Carlin Walsh, 130 Meadow Lane. Good evening, Mayor and trustees. I'm here tonight as a local business owner, as the executive committee member of the Chaffey County EDC, and as a longtime resident of this community. And I'm here to express my opposition to the proposed development moratorium on behalf of myself and all of our EDC members. The town staffing and water challenge is certainly overwhelming and frustrating, but it is simply unacceptable to stop business because of it. No matter the problems you inherit, fail to adequately address, or create yourself, they're just that, your problems. And it does not change the housing supply problem that is facing the residents of this community right now. The housing situation we find before us is a supply and demand issue. We need more supply. The community needs more housing, more opportunities to build housing, and a system which can efficiently usher builders to accomplish this task. We need subjectivity removed from the approval process and a spirit of collaboration and support for the town, from the town, and from the county, from our building departments. Restricting development, be it through development moratoriums or water tap restrictions, sends the message that Buena Vista is not open for business. It says that Buena Vista is no longer accessible to the everyday hardworking blue-collar American, but the elite instead. Restricting development, be it through, building moratoriums are for the I-70 corridor and for Boulder. They're not for Buena Vista nor for Chaffey County. The residents of this community, many of whom are employees of our locally owned and operated businesses, cannot afford the housing cost impacts this moratorium will have on already inflated values. In closing, I am asking you tonight to reconsider your proposed moratorium, focus your efforts on replacing Mr. Teipel, addressing our acute water tap issues, and collaborating with our community's developers and builders to address our housing shortage in earnest. Finally, myself and the EDC continue to extend our supportive hand to this group and to the town to navigate this situation in a productive and pragmatic manner that supports this community, its residents, and its businesses. Thank you.
Thank you, Carlin. Next, we have Dave Blazer. Good evening, Dave.
Good evening, everyone. Dave Blazer, 250 Tompkins Lane. Just to follow on, bias included, BV is the crown jewel of Chaffey County. Sorry, I can't help that, but I will say this moratorium definitely sends a mixed signal of whether or not BV is open for business. And if that's what you want to continue to convey, then just tell us and we will tell everyone else that BV is not open for business. And therefore, from the EDC's perspective, we will have to adjust. But I would argue that this town has long had a good history, at least for the last several years, of being in a place where it's different, it's adaptable, it's thoughtful, it's creative. So I would continue to encourage you all to be creative in how you consider what's important for this town, and as elected officials, what your constituencies are asking you for, and whether or not you've actually talked to your constituencies about whether or not this is important to them. Because if you would talk to them, I would argue that you would probably have some good feedback that would be important to consider. But overall, this town is amazing. Please be thoughtful, be creative. This is not just a solution, this is a no. And oftentimes it's easy. And right now, like, we recognize that what's going on in the town is challenging, but continue to foster that creative process, and remove that subjectivity and continue to be that crown jewel of what this county is and why people want to be here. And that's really important for us all to really keep in mind. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. The next speaker is Salty.
Hello, guys, I'm Salty. I live in Salida, actually, but I run a nonprofit that.
Sorry, would you give your first name and your last name and your address, please?
My last name is Riggs and my address is 218 Scott Street.
Thank you.
Salida.
Thank you.
My nonprofit serves Vista, though. We serve the whole county. We've been frantically trying to retain the workforce in this county because we're hemorrhaging our friends and our peers and our colleagues. We managed to give away 50 rental subsidies last year, and I lost 3 times that many friends. In the last 6 months, I've lost 3 board members who can't afford to live here. 2 of which worked at the Boys and Girls Club for a long time. One of them used to love to come and speak at the Salida City Council. And one of the things that they brought before City Council was they said they had watched some movie or something that inspired them to encourage City Council to plan 7 generations ahead. And not think about tomorrow and not think about how this is going to affect your kids, but think about how these kind of decisions are going to affect your kids, you know? And so I just want to say, guys, like, I'm doing my best, but I'm just a volunteer. Like, I'm just a server. I work at a distillery. I've had to move 3 times this year. And this crisis has gotten to the point now where we don't even have an affordable housing problem. We have a housing in general problem. We need all sorts of housing. We need housing for seniors. We need housing for you know, everyone all across the spectrum. We have a lack of supply, big time. And so I just wanted to let you know that this moratorium really genuinely like concerns us. And if it's something that you have to do, and then I'm begging you to please resolve these water, staffing, whatever issues with utmost urgency, because every minute that goes on, I'm losing more friends. And I'm not gonna be here for that much longer either. So please, and thank you.
Thank you, Salty. And the last person who I have signed up, unless there's somebody else who would like to speak, is Heather Rupska. Please give your name and address, Heather.
Heather Rupska, 24100 County Road 301A in BB. So as most of you know, I appreciate how hard it is right now for you and how challenging it must be. But we are years behind the ball with creating the town's strategic plan and implementing solutions to our workforce housing challenge. Most, in general, a lot have said it tonight, but most won't use the word crisis. We're knee deep in it. We're not at the beginning of it. We're knee deep in it. And if we don't act swiftly with some big decisions that are going to address this issue, it's not getting any better. It's going to get worse. There's not stagnant bad. It's either start doing something or it's going to tank. The housing shortfall is now threatening to paralyze what has just barely become a thriving economy, and the cherished sense of community has always been here. But we're baby at this thriving economy, and we were just getting there. But now we're to the point where the hospital, the school district, and the prison, and many more, have each seen prospective employees bail on job offers after realizing that the cost of living is just insupportable. We as a community, government, private business, residents, we need to make an actual move yesterday, not delay action for another 6 months. As head of the chamber, you know, I come here with the goggles on, looking through the lens of business friendly. And I want you to just think about owning a business and either having to figure out how to not only pay employees as costs go up, employees cost more, taxes cost, everything is costing more and more. And now as an employer, I'm faced with the challenge of providing my employees housing. So I gotta go build something, or I gotta go buy something just so I can have employees for my business. Or not have enough employees, which means if I'm staying open, guess who's working? Me. There's a great cost either way, and we're going to see more and more businesses close their doors. Then think about the people who would like to open a business. They would be willing to take the normal risks of doing that. But if they understand the lack of living wage housing here, then they won't even open a business. No business, no revenue. No revenue, no town. I have so much more. Anyway, I just.
And he's tough.
Right now.
Thank you all for your comments. We hear you and we appreciate your comments. Oh, online. Are there some people online? Annie, do you see?
Yeah, there's people online. So if you could raise your hand in the Zoom app, it'd be helpful so we know who wants to speak. And it should be at the bottom of the, if you take your mouse and scroll it down to the bottom bar, there should be a hand available to raise if you want to speak. Let's give it one more little peruse here.
Yeah.
Yes. Not seeing any hands, Mayor.
Okay, and there's a way for people to phone in. I assume there are none of those either. Okay, so we'll move on. We are moving on to staff reports, and we'll start with the town treasurer, Philip Bucket.
Good evening, everyone. I know my report is not the focus of this evening, so I'll be brief. But my report starts on page 46 of your packets. And a couple of things I just wanted to point out. Page 46, as I've been showing the last several meetings, just kind of the ongoing tracking of the budget amendments so far, and you can see those start to stack up, especially when more grants are coming in. So most of it's positive and or things that the board has directed to change, and we'll be bringing the mid-year adjustment on June 27th for the board to consider. On the next page, the only change on the grant tracking is kudos to Joseph and staff for securing an additional 1.35 million for the affordable housing project on Carbonate Street. That is now moved to awarded, and we're working to get under contract for that. So very excited to see that additional subsidy come in for that clearly important project. And then finally on page 48 is a summary of March sales tax, and you'll see it actually came in quite a bit lower than the trend we've been seeing. So just about 0.5% over budget over same month 2022. So this happens, not really a big surprise. So we'll see how the next month comes in, but it's also a good reminder that things can slow down at any moment on the sales tax side of things. So with that, I will stop and take any questions you may have.
Board, do you have questions for Philip?
I guess just with regard to the grants, I'm sorry, I didn't raise my hand, but are you feeling it's manageable or it's becoming not so much?
We're doing our best. It's a lot. We're having to, like the intent when we moved Lisa Brooker over to that role, establish more process around how we're tracking everything. Each grant is unique, and so understanding and communicating with our department heads how they need to communicate with our department. But so far so good. DOLA seems extremely busy, so we're the contract process is not as thorough in terms of guidance. So there's a lot more investigative work that we have to do to make sure we're following all the proper procedures for reporting and everything. But no, I think so far so good.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Philip? Thank you, Philip. And now the Public Works Director, Sean Williams.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, trustees. 2 reports in 1 month. So a little bit to cover here. I'll get through it pretty quick. So real quick, there's some information on the water plant expansion project, some updates there. I kind of shared with you some of what we look at bi-monthly and sometimes weekly, kind of a look ahead schedule that kind of talks about some of the things that the contractors and the engineers and the town teams kind of working on at the water plant. Kind of shared also with you just kind of an example of some of the topics and the things that we work on with our project meetings. So kind of some updates and participants, so fairly robust. About 10 or 12 people attend those meetings usually. So kind of goes through some of the things that we work on and some of the challenges that we face or we find, through the course of the projects and things that kind of show up that maybe you didn't anticipate doing, but also some things that were scheduled and definitely part of the project that the team works on to resolve. Not much has changed since the last staff report that I gave earlier this month, but just some updates. List of what we're doing for the engineering side of things. So Elk Runs, we're still waiting for the second water supply protection district application for the on-site wastewater treatment systems. Fantastic group of talented people helping me review that. Multiple engineers are involved between Swiftwater, RG, and Right Water engineers. And Elk Runs team's got some fantastic, talented people helping them get this project going as well. We'll see the Upper Tank RFP project finally coming out this year. I think we'll get that advertised. We'll look at maybe a bid schedule opportunity adjustment for a possible mural in the future. So maybe we'll talk about that later on there and maybe come up with some ideas there. And we'll see how that goes. I just put a handful, well, three of the developments that are pretty much, kind of staring us, or looking at it. So the Boulders and the Crossing and the Homestead. But I would say like, that's more administrative kind of reviews right now, the early grading with Homestead. I'm sorry, with the Boulders, it's gone pretty well, but it still takes some time to kind of review that and make sure that's going pretty well. They did have a site meeting scheduled with sanitation district to start looking at timing on getting that infrastructure installed. We haven't had a pre-con public works with their team yet, but we're looking to see that come pretty soon. And the one thing I would say, like, from a staff standpoint, there's multiple other, like, so the farm phase 2 is still going, South Main phase 2 is still going, Pine Street infill development is a couple here and there, Arkansas Street infill. Man, that looks, that whole block is busy. It looks like a lot's going on and a lot gets done there every day. We have a little bit of impact coming on Main Street. We still have some water service lines and some fire service lines to connect to the CKS biking project on Main Street. Phase 8 and Sunset Vista has numerous infill projects and that's about it. There's some scattered infill projects throughout town too. So our water department and our team stays pretty busy meeting the needs of the contractors for those projects as well. So, a big thanks to the Parks Department, and they are hopping, really, really awesome group of people. Feel pretty lucky. We should be locking in that last position that we have open this week. We've had some great candidates interview for that position as well. Big thanks to the tree board, and I'll leave it at that. Any questions?
Sean, with the water supply protection district study, groundwater study, what's the timing of that?
That timing on that is probably a little ways out. So we're probably looking at data that we have, and hopefully we'll be able to pull some of the USGS data too, but I was looking at that for me right now. So
is it like a year out, or?
I'd say it's
idea?
probably at least a year out.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Other questions for Public Works? Thank you, Sean.
Thank you.
I'll get busy on that mural. For the water tank. Okay, Jack Wiles, our airport manager, has a report.
Good evening, Mayor, trustees, and public. Thank you for having me. My report's on page 75. I'll be brief, as I have a resolution later on in the evening. We've just moved to our 10-hour day for our summer operation from 7 in the morning to 5 in the afternoon. Also, as well as we're going to have some summer holidays, or folks will be out in and out, but we'll be well covered through the summer. We just got another delivery of fuel, so it allowed us to drop our prices a bit, be more competitive in the region. As well as operational, or what's going on at the airport. We're about to start our summer construction project for the apron rehabilitation. That's the area where we mostly put our aircraft and tie them down, as well as move our fence line. The good thing about moving the fence line will allow us to start developing hangars. That's part of what's coming up later on this evening with the resolution. I'll get into that a little bit later. But all that to say, both CDOT, that's Department of Transportation Aeronautics Division, and the FAA have approved our funding. And so we're basically just about tonight, tonight we'll be able to start the project, or start with that. Operation wise, we're starting to pick up. And when you see the tables and the graphs, you'll see some of the numbers showing that. We do have some testing this year. Towards the fall, we're gonna have the Air Force come back with those of you who were here last summer, you'll see a gray helicopter that's coming back in the fall. The Army was going to bring in a helicopter beginning the first 2 weeks of June, but they postponed that. They may or may not come in. They've had some issues with their aircraft. A little bit of disappointment. We're going to have the Mountain Colorado Skydive Club come and join us last weekend and do some jumping and tandem jump, but that got canceled. Apparently their pilot had up and quit. So unless anybody could fly, we're out of luck. maybe next, they might reschedule in the fall, we'll see what happens. What else is going on? And then, about the latter half of June, I will be going to Colorado Springs to the Colorado Aviation Conference. And that's where we'll discuss the improvement plans to the airport for the next 5 years. So the stuff that we're gonna be doing this summer, we had discussed that in previous conferences, so we'll go to that conference and dream up new projects. And then our new employee, Nick, we've just got, he's been with us for about a month or so. We've sent him on a fuel safety course. So he's gonna come back and teach us a thing or two. The graphs or the tables, you can see our operations are starting to pick up. We're lagging a bit because it's a little bit of a tough winter. So as far as the year to date, we're a little bit behind, but month this year compared to last year, we're ahead. So we're picking up. And the same you can see under fuel, and the graphs are there for your viewing pleasure. If you have any questions, I'll certainly entertain any of that. Thank you.
Could you talk a little bit about the fuel island that you're putting in or hoping to put in?
Yes, so we have applied for a grant through both the Hickenlooper office and Bennett. And we sent that through and it got initially approved, and actually both is made it to the second stage, which it's good, but it doesn't mean that we're gonna get it, but we're still on progress to get it. So we put in for $1.25 million funding and to put in a new fuel island. If we get that, that'll be a project for 2024. We'll keep you up to date on that for sure.
Great. What's the cost of the fuel island?
Well, we estimate about 1.2 million.
Okay.
Because it's not just the tanks and that, it's got to be environmental, ground prep, engineering, and so. And anything to do with airport, just double it. That's the way it is.
Other questions for Jack? Airport questions? Okay, great. Thank you, Jack. And now we will move to the business items, with the first topic being the one of most interest to our audience here. The board will consider adopting an ordinance which implements with immediate effect a 120-day moratorium on the acceptance and processing of new subdivision applications. The board may choose to adopt an ordinance that also includes a moratorium on the acceptance of new annexation petitions requiring water. So, Lisa, is this you or is it?
Moment in
Yeah.
time that everyone's been waiting for. And me too. So I would like to clear up something for the public that has come, and we appreciate you coming and telling us things. So you've been important through the whole process. And so one of the things that you've said is staff resources. It really does have come down to water. And if you've read my staff report, you'll notice that we have calculated to the water plan, the water resources master plan, that there's 475 SFEs that are available. And the projects that we have in the hopper right now with active applications equate to just over 300 SFEs. Town has to be very diligent about making sure we don't overextend our resources. There's emergencies, there's other things that we've got to consider. We've talked about those many times. I know we've had several meetings with developers to try and be transparent about the water issues at hand. In December, we had some luncheon meetings. We also had some in March, I think.
In April.
Was it April? Okay, thank you for clearing that up. I looked on my calendar, said March. Either way, we've had a couple of meetings, luncheons, where we've talked about this, and we're at a moment in time now where we really need to take into consideration a pause. And several reasons for that. One is the code that we would need to create potentially for us to look at if there is a code change that needs to drive that length of time that we've been waiting to attach to that allocation bucket ordinance. So it's the second link. So the second ordinance that we've been waiting to implement. The other is the framework for projecting the available balance of SFEs. And then the other piece here is we've heard some very positive feedback about the water augmentation certificates, and we think that we can make that work as a short-term plan, a short-term solution. It would also help diversify our portfolio or water portfolio. So there's time though that needs to be invested by staff to figure out how those fees are translated. We know that we would be somewhat of a pass-through. In other words, they would need to pay to the town directly or come to the town directly. We're working on that plan. I know that Philip and Joseph are working on that plan. And Joseph did just take over the special projects manager role. So there's all of this that is rotating around, and what that gives you is two draft ordinances that are available for you to look at. One has to do with the major and minor subdivision applications being paused, new applications, to be clear, that don't already have sketch plans that are approved. And so in essence, that's anything that's brand new that comes to us that we need to look at. Probably take some time anyways to get through those. So a pause of 120 days is what we're looking at for that one ordinance. That is in both ordinances, but the other piece is in the second ordinance, which has to do with the annexations. And that just simply says that we also would include annexations to be paused for 120 days that don't bring their own water, because this is really truly about water. So if you have questions, I or Jeff, I know Jeff was critical on helping to craft the ordinances, so he can also answer any questions you might have. I think Joseph is still on the line. He can probably answer some questions as well. He has a bit. So
Joseph, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
You're here? Okay. Okay, trustees. What questions do we have for either Lisa or Joseph or Sean? Yes.
So my main question when reading through this is, understanding basically it's the 315 taps to a certain extent. Like, I think what we heard from the public earlier was that introducing this moratorium is going to really impact the housing crisis and units. And, I think if the idea is these 315 will not be impacted by this moratorium, then we still will be getting the majority of the units that will account for the water that we do have currently. And I don't think we really want to be accounting for water we don't have yet. Is kind of how I was reading this and my understanding of all this. And so I think it'd be helpful to know if those 350, I'm just using that number because it's right here, but like all the different developments have made it through the sketch plans, if they actually will be impacted by this in some way or some form, because I think that's at least the outstanding question for me is, I understand for new developments coming through that haven't gone through the sketch process, there's more term in them, but then those who have gone through that process, the 315, they will not be impacted by this. But is there some reason to believe that they actually will be impacted by this in some way?
No, they're going to continue with the staff that we have, which is myself and Chase, and we're gonna work as diligently as we can through these with legal and the help of our consultants. And a lot of these, all three of the developments that aren't impacted, that have already made it through sketch plan, they all have affordable housing involved in them as well. I believe that they're proposing. So Joseph, correct me if I'm wrong. You can correct me, so I must have.
I think there's 15 minor subdivisions, because I had asked that earlier today, what minor subdivisions had made it through, and I think there's about 15 that are already approved, have gone through the sketch plan that would also.
Rotating through as well, so those will still continue. If they're already, have already provided us an application and we're working on them. We'll continue to work on them. Correct.
To me, 120 days doesn't sound like a lot of time. You know, it's not a huge shutdown. I mean, we're not saying we're closing down for 2 years.
You know,
To me, we should be able to, you know, make some headway in that time and then be up and ready to roll with new applications.
I found it interesting today at the CML conference. I'll just share this, that we went to, and Sue was there as well. But one of the things that one of the legislative bills that was talking to moratoriums and basically getting rid of moratoriums, CML is supportive of that because they realize that there are things that are unique to each area and each municipality, that there are reasons where you would need to put a pause. And so they've been supportive of you know, not, you know, going against that bill. And Sue, you can expand upon that too if you want, but I thought that was interesting and how it kind of tied into what we're asking here. So, I mean, CML is a very big organization and they're very crucial in driving some of these bills that come through and affect land use operations, so.
That's the Colorado Municipal League.
Yes.
And it has about, what, 2,700 towns or something like that
Yes.
that are in it. So there are a lot of our peers are members of the CML.
They are. They are.
Sue, did you want to add to that?
Not necessarily add to that, but I guess I am trying to understand, and I don't know how much interaction we can have, but with the folks that have commented, but just the impact concerns. I'm not saying there aren't, you know, I see there are concerns, but I think that in a lot of the developments that we're working on right now that will be able to progress during the moratorium, we're meeting some of our housing goals. I mean, you can never do enough, but I guess I'm trying to understand. I hear what you say about lending and lenders, and investors and developers. I guess I'm not unsympathetic. I just don't understand how 120 days, which I know is 6 months, it's a long time, but how that really stops and makes it look like 4 months. Sorry, my math is bad. And that's why I'm on the board. No, I'm just kidding. But I understand, you know, that there are concerns, but I feel like we're still moving towards toward housing goals. We're very committed to trying to get affordable housing. We're working with some of you and some of you are working with us to do that. So I just need to hear, I guess, a little bit more or understand a little more about how we slide back so much if we take a pause to really figure out the water, which I think in the end will benefit everyone.
I have some feelings on some of those.
Sure, Devin.
Those points, because I've been thinking about it and talking about it. You know, I hear a lot of things that are similar to when we were creating the UDC and many other policies here in town, is that, you know, whatever we're doing isn't the right thing, or we need to stop what we're doing. You know, I see this as, you know, it kind of hurts me to really hear that we're not helping with housing, when this is exactly what this is about, is helping with housing. And that's the way I see it, is that, you know, housing comes with water, and we have a limited amount of water. And if we don't allocate that water to certain housing, then we can't, and it's unrestricted, and development just develops as it goes. And, you know, the unrestricted development here has gotten us where we are now. And well, obviously not unrestricted, but, you know, there's also two voices that I haven't heard from, which are which I think are telling, which is Chaffey Housing Authority and Chaffey Housing Trust, which haven't come here to be against this.
We do have the executive director of the Chaffey Housing Authority is here tonight.
Oh, good, but I haven't heard from them.
Not speaking.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
you know, last year, Chaffey Housing Authority did a presentation where they talked about how 40% of all houses in Chaffey County are vacant. That's not second housing, that's not that's second homes, not Airbnbs. And you know, if you look on Zillow right now, which I do almost every meeting, just to
During the meeting?
sometimes
Come on.
just to get an idea of how much housing is costing right now, and the development and the rentals that are on the market, they're out of control. So I think a pause of a few months is very acceptable, because we don't want to make these fast decisions, because this is a very important direction that we're going. You know, we're working on the Carbonate Street project, which is really bringing affordable housing here, you know, and I'm not hearing about any of these. Just putting a pause for a few months to really figure out, to make sure that these water are going to developments that are really going to actually help people. And that's the way I see it. But
Yeah, some of the developers who are here tonight have really asked us what we need. And we need housing for workers, which translates largely into apartments. And we appreciate your being willing to, you know, to build those and to work with the Chaffey Housing Trust, you know, to get some people in as initial homeowners as well. So, you know, we're not looking at you as bad guys. We're appreciative of, you know, the things that you're doing to help us with this problem, because we're very much aware of the problem. And, you know, it's not easy to fix it. Thanks for your help.
Say something, I guess, but because I personally don't think there's anybody here that really wants to see development stop. And obviously with what is being proposed, there is some development that will continue on. But I'm fully aware, obviously, of the importance of continued development, and also aware of the impacts directly related to development and from development. And though some may not believe that water is actually an issue, indeed it is. And it's very real and it's very present, and it's here right now. And that's what we're dealing with. So I'm personally in favor of taking this pause so we can create a well thought out and educated solution that will both benefit the town now, but also into the future. I really do think that if we continue on a path without a solid plan, we're just being quite irresponsible and reckless. And some people may feel like, hey, it's okay, but we're thinking about all of the residents. Appreciate you guys, you're doing a great job, but there are a lot of people, and we do talk to our constituents. And we've heard, well, you can, whatever you choose to think, but not everybody is thinking the exact same way as you as well. So I think it's very smart for us to take the pause, reset, make sure we're doing what's best for the town 120 days from now, and also 20 years from now.
We do have trustee Switcher is raising her hand.
Hi, Cindy, please speak to us.
Am I unmuted?
Yeah, thanks for being there.
The main issue that we're going through this is water. I don't know how anybody could possibly think that we were not for growth in our town when right now we have the Boulders, Carbonate Street, the farm, the homestead, the crossings, and the Aspen Stackhouse development, along with regular infill in our town. No way is Buena Vista against growth. I know that we cannot wait the full year to see the ground study, but the groundwater study. But I do know that people in our area that have lived here a long time are having to cap their wells and dig deeper wells. So we really do need to know what's going on underground with water. And we have purchased in the process and purchasing water rights, and we have to give that water time. It has to go through water court, and depending on how it was used before, we might not get that full water right to use in a for municipal uses. And so the water rights that we are planning on, we really need to find out how much of that water we can actually use after it goes through water court. And in our growth and developing the subdivisions and stuff, we need to stop and think about how it is impacting our infrastructure and the services that we provide to the community. Some of that water might need to be saved because we're going to need to build bigger schools. Some of that might be building medical facilities, building and growing our police and fire departments and stuff. So it isn't just the homes, it is how the whole town functions. So I think that 120 days, 4 months, that this gives us the opportunity to truly plan so we don't over issue water and end up with problems. I guess that's it.
Thank you, Cindy. That's a good reminder on how long it takes us to turn what we think is a water right into actual water for our community. Other thoughts?
I guess just the difference between A and B and why, which is more preferred or not preferred, I guess would be what we need to figure out.
I do want to follow up, I guess, on my previous question, though, just because I really phrase it a little differently, but please, have you heard from any of the existing, again, the 315 number individuals who think this will impact them? So this could actually harm the growth that we already been talking about. Like if they reach out and say, we're going to lose financing, or we won't be able to grow in some way.
None of them have communicated to me that they feel they'll be impacted. They all know that they have their applications and we've been working them for a while. One of them is already sketch plan. And so, you know, that seemed like the logical cutoff to allow that number through. I know that, you know, obviously we still have a staffing shortage, so there's still going to be probably some slower pace here going with them, but it doesn't have anything to do with the water per se. We're still going to keep working on them, and they know that. We've been having meetings and we've been working with them. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that was my main concern on this, is if, again, the existing units that we've been talking about actually would be impacted this, like is the kind of collateral damage that we're not planning on. And but if we haven't heard from them, that's not a concern then. That's...
I'll make a motion. It's okay.
Yeah, you can make a motion and then we'll have a second and
Okay. Well, I'm gonna move to, so I'll go with option B. I move to approve the adoption of ordinance number 12, approving an emergency ordinance imposing a temporary moratorium on the acceptance, processing, and approval of subdivision applications and annexation additions within the town. We have it.
is there a second?
I'll second.
Yeah, we have the Kretzy and Rowe. Is there further discussion? Um, All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes, which means that ordinance option B is in effect. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Okay, we will now go on to the CDOT funding for the Central Colorado Regional Airport. Should the Board of Trustees approve the adoption of resolution number 33, series 2023, entitled "A Resolution of the Board of Trustees for the Town of Buena Vista, Colorado, approving Colorado Division of Aeronautic Discretionary Aviation Grant Resolution for professional services for the 2023 apron rehabilitation and fence relocation project construction phase." So Jack, this must be you.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Thank you, trustees, for listening to the resolution. It's rather long-winded. It's written by the Division of Aeronautics. But the bottom line is, well, I'll give you a little bit of background here, and I put in a letter, if you had an opportunity to read it. So this is a two-phase project. In 2020, we approved and had funding for the design phase of what we're about to start this summer. This summer is the construction phase, which is where the big expense is, the larger expense, of course. And it basically breaks down to, paving the tie-down areas, rehabilitating that, moving the fence. And the way it works with these kind of projects, they're funded, two main funding come from the FAA and CDOT. So the FAA funds 90% of the project. The remaining 10% is split between the state, CDOT Aeronautics, and ourselves, the town. So what we're proposing here, and the other thing too, I'll back up to, is these FAA and CDOT, whilst they give us the funding for the same project, they sort of work in a stovepipe. So FAA we present the funding, what we think the cost is. In the meantime, CDOT has their own state funding, and they'll come out and they say, here's what we're prepared to give you. So you'll see on the, if you read the resolution in the Exhibit A, it's, they're just estimating a project of 1.5 million. In that's the max that they're saying that if the project comes to that amount, CDOT is saying that they'll match that at 78,000. And then they're expecting the town to honor our side of it with the same amount, the 5%. So that's the essence of this resolution. So the resolution is also saying, and there's a lot of other, the Exhibit C or B and C, basically it's just saying, if we accept these terms and we accept the money, that we must spend it in accordance with aviation. We can't use it for something else. We have to abide by aviation rules and regulations. We have to be safe. And the other part of the resolution is appointing myself as the director for the project. Now, the project itself is not going to come in at that price. Just like I said, all CDOT is saying, here's what we're prepared. They did their budget, and they have a budget process that starts in June. So this is from their previous year. So they're prepared to match up to and you'll look at Annex or Exhibit A, up to 78,000. So that's the essence of what they're saying. Now, the reason it is high is what they have the bilateral infrastructure law, which is another government funding that we could tap into. So the CDOT Aviation has just leaned into it and said, well, if you choose to use that, then we'll match that as well. And if you looked at the letter I have down at where it said, I said the total fund received would be 1,224,000, 1.2 million, plus, if needed, the BIL, which in this case, we're not gonna need the BIL. But they're just prepared if that was, because this was written before all the bidding had come in, before the FAA has adopted or has granted the fund. And if you remember when I said at the beginning of my report, I said FAA's already granted the funding and everything else, so we've got that. We've got the funding, which comes in way under what the CDOT is. So all we're proposing, we're just saying, approve the funding approve that CDOT will fund and match the FAA. That's what I'm requesting. And if you just go down, you can see a little diagram probably. So this starts on page 85, my letter, and then the diagram on 86. And it sort of just shows the scope of what's going on here. So those big dotted, sort of somewhat rectangle shape, that's the fence line. And then just to if you're looking at the screen on the right side, that's where the apron is going to be redone. So that's the whole project area. That's what's going to be done this summer. If you have any questions, I certainly will answer and entertain any questions.
Jack, this sounds like a good deal. Are there any constraints in it that bother you or that you've, had to investigate?
No, like I said, it's better for them to be prepared to give us more than have to go back and beg for money later. So we are well in the black on this, though. There should be no problems. In fact, they're prepared to fund anything we have. As I said, the next time we meet, the next trustees meeting, I'll have a resolution for the actual acceptance of the FAA grant, which is, they're kind of the lead on this. And you'll see it, and we're expecting it to come way under, so.
Great. Sue?
Jack, I just want to commend you and your team, and I assume finance had some involvement in it just for, I know you've been working at this for a very long time, just coordinating the engineering and pulling all the parties together for funding. It's very complex, but it seems like we're at a really good point with it.
Yeah, thank you.
Is this already accounted for in the budget?
Yes, so at the beginning of the year, when we do our budget, I had already put this into as the CIP is our budget for this year's project. So we've accounted for this funding.
Great.
You're looking for an approval of, or
The approval of the
resolution?
Resolution, yes. So
Number
it
33.
just has to be signed, and then I can send it to CDOT, and then CDOT will release their portion of the funding.
Would you like to make a motion?
Yeah, I thought so.
I was just going to make a motion.
Oh, you can
Go
do
ahead.
it.
Oh,
I don't care.
I move that we adopt resolution number 33, series 2023.
I'll second.
Great. I'd like to do a roll call, please.
Trustee Cobb,
Yes.
trustee Hilton Hinga,
Yes.
trustee LaCretzi,
Yes.
trustee Rowe,
Yes.
trustee Swisher.
Yes.
Thank you, Jack.
Thank you.
Philip. Great. So now we have a few changes. We're on item C for the amending the 2023 fee schedule. And this is from Public Works. Sean, would you like to tell us about this, please?
Yeah, sure. Thanks. Thank you, Mayor. So the memo for the resolution is on page 101 in the packet. Yeah, I apologize for kind of midstream. Usually we only have to do this Public Works once a year. So, but I appreciate your time and consideration for these fee schedule adjustments. So we have several on here, and I'll just kind of run through them with you in the overview on the staff report of the memo. And the first one we have is cash in lieu cost for paving. We came up with that cost based on some of the projects that we've done over the years, primarily in 2002, the most recent ones. So some of our paving projects to get that price. That price is also consistent with the excavation permit fee schedule cost for working in our right of ways. So there's some, they're connected there on that. Kind of similar to what we have with our sidewalks and some of our curb and gutter, but also kind of helps us with some of the things that we have with our infill. So we have some code section 5.6 where infill development infrastructure may be requiring public improvements that may be absent. And we would want them to kind of be compatible with the infrastructure that may exist in the surrounding areas. So there are some streets that don't have pavement. There are some streets that have pavement. There are just some areas where that might help us, but also give us an idea of how to maybe help the developer base that cost on some of the public improvement agreements that they might have for major developments as well. So kind of helps us out there. Fill station and bulk water rate increase, you know, it seems pretty significant there. But if you do the math on that, it's still, you know, 3 cents a gallon, which seems to me to be a pretty fair price. We know that our water doesn't cost that much to produce, but we do have staff time involved in that. We do have at sometimes disrepair. I think in the last probably 3 years, we've had to replace the fill station's faceplate. So the credit card reader got replaced last year. A little bit of staff time goes into that. And, you know, we also have some things that are going to be coming at us where we are going to need to be replacing probably 1 or possibly 2 meters here in the future. But meter testing and backflow testing also goes into that. Seems like a pretty significant increase. And to be honest with you, it probably puts us in the higher end in the state for what that fill station cost prices are. But I also know that, you know, some of the fill stations that we have in our area are looking to us for some of the things and some of the information that we've been gathering. You know, Poncha Springs is getting ready to do a very similar fill station that we have. And anyways, that's kind of what I have on there. And I know that we had increased it already this year, but looking to turn that price up just a little bit more with your consideration. Most of the other ones kind of revolve around our water operators, which, you know, certified water professional. That's the title that somebody has that has a water treatment license or a distribution license or both. And so really kind of going through that, you know, the backflow testing is not really something that we want to provide for our community as a resource. We want to provide it to our community as a resource for not getting their water shut off. And so we've seen that, you know, that's about twice the price as what a plumber would charge for testing a backflow or somebody that's certified to test backflow preventers. And that's part of our cross connection program. So we have about, I think we have 75 or so testable devices in our community. And it's mostly revolves around commercial buildings that are required to have those tested. And it's just one thing that we have to have these tested annually. And so this gives us, we have 2 water operators that are certified to test those, and they test the town's water systems, but it gives us kind of a relief to help somebody that might be in a situation where they can't find a contractor, or if we're just trying to get somebody to keep their water flowing into their building, whether it might be a motel or a hotel or a restaurant. So we see that happen from time to time for CO. It's kind of one of those things that kind of get lost. I'm not looking to provide that resource. I don't want to really advertise for it, but I want to be able to have that fee based on the schedule to allow for that opportunity to do that. And the other ones that we have in there kind of, see if I can find it. Yeah, some of the other things that we're kind of starting to see is that our operators are having to go back to maybe do a service line inspection multiple times or several times. And so, and the same with water meter inspection. So really what we're wanting people to do is just read our instructions and get it right the first time so we don't have to go back and do it again. We see that happen fairly frequently right now. And, you know, just, you know, train our contractors and our people that are doing the work for us to basically get that done. The pages in there, you know, that we have adjusted are page 11 for the asphalt. Page 14 has some of the water changes that we have for bulk water. And we have one more page that has the certified water operator services, backflow non-compliant services, and the water inspection fee, $50. So happy to answer questions. Yes, Gina.
So the backflow, okay, so if they're out of compliance or whatever, they pay the $400 and it says in here, they get like 7 days. Do you come back again then in 7 days if they're still out of compliance? Would they get charged $400 again?
No, so it would be one fee. And
Oh.
really what we want to do is get them to get that backflow tested by, we'd be the last resort on that. But we would get that backflow device assembly tested within the allotted time that they have to have it tested based on our code and based on state regulatory compliance measures.
Thank you.
So one fee. but get it-
One time.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Questions for Sean? Is there a motion to pass this resolution amending the fee schedule?
I'll make a motion to approve. Look at my cheat sheet. To adopt resolution number 34, amending the kind of fiscal 2023 fee schedule.
Second.
Ah. All right, we're gonna give that one to you, Cindy. You were fast.
Louder.
Okay, we got Rose Swisher. Lucrezi backs away.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, do we need a roll call on this or just regular vote?
Seals of finance, right?
Just a regular vote.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion passes. Thank you very much, Sean.
Thank you, Mayor. I just, we do have multiple water bottle fill stations throughout town. I think we have 3 of them, so that provides, low volume water users. Thank you.
So now we have the item D, which is the proposal from Right Water Engineers for the Buena Vista well number 4. And the question is, should the Board of Trustees approve the adoption of resolution number 35, series 2023, entitled "A Resolution of the Board of Trustees for the Town of Buena Vista, Colorado, accepting a proposal from Right Water Engineers Incorporated for engineering service for well number 4." And I have a feeling this is Sean.
Yeah, it's me again. And yeah, I mean, this one's probably pretty cut and dry. This was proposed in the adopted budget as a capital project for your review for the 2023 budget. We thought it would be significantly more. Some value shopping with Right Water for a change. I'm joking. Fantastic price. Great scope of services. We worked with Rachel and her team on this to provide, kind of a scope of services for your review as well. Yeah, it's definitely under budget of what we have for the year. It gives us an opportunity to get the engineering and the scoping services done to get that well for project and build a request for proposal and for well construction. I'd be happy to kind of go through Right Water's report if there's any questions there, but it's pretty explanatory on what they're proposing. Really, locate where we're going to put it. The location we kind of determined is probably at the River Park area. When we did the pump test for well 3, we identified that there's a pretty significant amount of groundwater resources opportunities down there for that. So more than likely, it's probably going to land just to the north of the softball field, high school baseball field area. Back when Trish was here about this time last year, we went kind of walked the site and considered the report that Right Water gave us at the end of 2021 to kind of help build this project scope. So looking like probably it would be something that would connect to the water mains on Arkansas and Pinion, kind of in that area. If you can kind of go, you kind of see where that kind of water main kind of system is kind of connected over there. Behind the elementary school. This would allow, and this is probably the location, we'd see where we're at. I mean, we really want to look at it much closer, but up to this point, that's kind of seems to be the most logical choice. It probably would have some minimal impact to the Frisbee golf course, but I don't think it would be anything that would significantly impact that. As town property, we want to make sure that we're outside of the high school property. That they have there for the baseball field, and also try to keep us that gradient from, you know, any kind of agricultural things that might be happening down there with that. That's a huge field there, so I definitely don't want to be below that one. Prefer to be off to the side or upgrading permit for water. But yeah, that's kind of where we're at with that. We see a pretty good opportunity for that well to provide some really good, fantastic opportunities for either future water rights or future augmentation certificates. Obviously, at this point, we'd be using our project water for the well permit since we don't have a water right that we could put at it. But similar to some of the discussions that we had, if we were to move forward with augmentation certificates, that would be a well that we could start stacking some of that stuff in. It would also be a well that we could use, you know, some of our water rights, possibly Bray Allen or a future water right, possibly, you know, anything that might be coming down the pipe to allow us to, you know, use that well for that. And also provide us some redundancy for our gallery infiltration system, well 2, well 3. Yeah.
So this is Arkansas River water, right? But it's not from our water. We don't have water rights for it. So we have to augment this well then with other water, or not the well necessarily, but the outflow from the well.
Yeah, I think for me, like, you know, the important thing for me on this one was to, you know, identify how we can get a well permit. So we have to have the ability to construct a well. You have to have a well, some form of augmentation or water right associated to it. So for this phase, we would definitely be looking at using some of our project water to provide that.
And the project water is the type of water that may not be a long-term asset.
Yeah, the project water is the water we purchase. It's you know, the source is Southeastern Water Conservancy District is where we purchase the water from, and that's storage well. And we use that water for multiple things. Right now, we're using it for an augmentation plan for the non-potable water for well 3. We're using it for the potable water side of well 3. And we're also using that for some of the augmentation evap losses for Town Lake. We can transfer some of that water up to Pinewood Lake, minimal amounts for storage.
Thank you.
Mayor, I have a question.
Yes, please.
So just since I've been a little shaky on math tonight, I just wanted to ask, so this is about $65,000 and the budget item is what, $150,000? Is the rest for the actual construction or?
Yeah, I think, this helps us get kind of an OPC, also opinion of probable cost by getting this RFP out. Right water will help us understand what that construction for that well, you know, ultimately would be. You know, so that's what we're hoping to find out with this as well. So early on that we could budget for in the future.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, the budget this year was for design and engineering.
Okay.
And for, you know, getting everything lined up for construction. And then we would budget for construction next year.
Okay. And what's a rough estimate on construction? Do we?
I would say, you know, generally, I don't want to put right water in a corner,
That's all
right?
right.
But, you know, 10% project cost usually goes into engineering. Somewhere in there.
Okay, great. Thank you.
15.
Questions? Okay, Gina would like to make a motion.
Sure, I'll make the motion to adopt resolution number 35, accepting the proposal from Right Water Engineers Incorporated for engineering service for well number 4.
Second.
So we have Lucrezi, Cobb. Let's do a roll call on that, please.
Yes.
Yes.
Trustee Lucrezi.
Yes.
Trustee Rowe.
Yes.
Trustee Swisher.
Yes.
Okay, the motion passes. Thank you very much. Next item is is a question of how we would like to find a new trustee. Mark Jenkins has resigned from the Board of Trustees. And so there are basically 2 options. One is to hold an election, and the other is to appoint a trustee, which we usually do by an election here ourselves. But the question is whether we want to have an election from the general public, which would cost $10,000 or so, or whether we want to do an election among ourselves with candidates coming and making a presentation. And then we vote, and that person, whoever wins, is seated that night as a trustee. So, opinions.
That would be, they wouldn't fulfill his term, they would just fulfill it until the next election and be included.
Right,
in the next
until the
election.
April election.
So
And then there'll be 4 seats up in that election. Is that right, Paula?
There'll be 4 seats, so there'll be 3 seats up for 4 years. But as far as for Mark's term, they still need to just be 2 years because the election is to fulfill his term.
Right.
So we'll have 3 positions for 4-year terms and 1 position for a 2-year term.
Right.
And the way that will work is the list of candidates would be on the ballot, and it would be the top vote receivers would get the 4-year terms, and then the 4th person would get the 2-year term. So it goes by vote, not by saying, okay, I'm going to run for the 2-year term, by the votes received.
So it gives new people a chance to be a trustee for several months, right? I mean, 9 months maybe by the time we do this, and then they're up for election. But there's not a lot of campaigning that's required to run like this. It's one presentation in front of us, and maybe a few coffees or lunches or something to ask trustees questions about what's it like to be a trustee. It's lots of fun.
One of the other things that we discussed doing different this time is having the interested people complete a questionnaire that they'll do via the website. And there's 25 questions that are being asked, what their interests are, what their skill set is and things. And once those are submitted on June 19th, then I'll forward those to the Board of Trustees for your review, to where you can read their letter of intent as well as a response to those questions. And then you can do a question and answer session when they do their presentations on June 29th. And if you want to go out and look what the questions are, you can go out to the town website, government trustees, and there's a trustee questionnaire there. So you two can see what they're being asked.
Yeah. So among ourselves, we need to decide whether it's going to be an election or appointment by the trustees, which means our own little election in here.
I'm all for appointment. I don't think we need to charge the town 10K when we're gonna have to have an election anyway.
Okay.
April.
I agree.
Yeah, same.
Cindy, do you have an opinion?
I agree that we should save the 10K and do it by appointment election through us.
Okay. Peter?
Yeah, I'd be a hypocrite if I said we should have an election.
Peter was an appointee. Tina was an appointee originally.
I was an appointee once,
Yeah, that's right.
2016, man. Volunteered to come back.
And then I'll study up again on ranked choice voting. In case we have, multiple candidates, it seemed like that was a worthwhile approach to voting.
Yeah.
So, so it is the consensus of the board that we would like to fill the trustee vacancy through appointment.
And we will need a
Need a
motion,
motion.
please.
I'll make a motion to move that the trustee vacancy be made by appointment at the board meeting on June 29th, 2023.
Thank you. Great, so we have Rowe and Lucrezi, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, great.
Questions are hard. I don't think I'd be a trustee.
Yeah.
Makes you think it's not easy.
Okay, so now we are at trustee interaction. And let's see, Kevin, would you like to, do you have anything tonight?
No, I'm good.
Okay. Gina?
There was something, but
Okay. I'm gonna be out of town for 3 days. So back on Monday, which is a holiday. Sue?
Nothing for me.
Okay. Peter?
No, I just feel for, all the town staff for this weekend and Memorial Day coming up. There's a lot of work they have to be doing while we're partying, so
Yeah.
thanks for everything y'all are doing.
If you get a chance, you should go to the Surf Hotel and take a look at the,
Oh, yeah.
Right.
take a look at the charrette that's going on there too. Just ideas of how the Meadows property might get developed. It's owned by Jed Selby, and he's done the South Main property here. And they've hired a design or planning type firm out of Miami to lead this charrette, and it's pretty interesting. You might want to just go by and take a look at their maps or find out what their schedule of events is.
I think, Mayor, the last one is tomorrow night.
Oh, okay.
Maybe at 6, where they're gonna kind of share what they've heard and.
I thought it was Thursday.
Isn't tomorrow? Okay,
Oh,
Thursday. Yeah, sorry.
I could be wrong.
Tomorrow was
I thought it was
Thursday.
Thursday, it was like.
Thinking about my dates.
It says, yeah, Thursday from 6 to 8.
Yeah.
They have a work in progress presentation.
And I think that's their last, while they're in town here. Thursday, yeah, sorry.
It's been well attended by people from the area.
I think they're working out of the Ivy Ballroom, and they were just inviting people to drop by anytime.
Yeah, yeah. So Cindy, do you have anything you'd like to share in trustee staff interaction?
I think I'm good for tonight.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Philip?
Nothing for me, thank
Paula?
Nothing for me.
John?
Thank you.
Jack?
Thank you.
Annie? Jeff? Jeff is our attorney. Jeff used to come in person all the time. I mean, it seems like you were here a lot. And now usually you're on Zoom. It's so convenient.
It's kind of up to you what you like me to do. I mean, it does save you some money, me not driving up here, but I'm happy to be here when you think it's better to have me here in person. So it's completely up to the board.
You're louder when you're on Zoom.
I know, I'm hearing Cindy and I'm worried that I'm coming across.
I always know I'm in trouble when you pop up
Yeah.
on Zoom.
Oh.
Here comes Jeff's head.
All right.
Lisa?
I don't have it.
Is that everybody? Okay, great. Let's take a little break. And then, or we could do the motion to go into an executive session. And take a break.
Yeah, I've got a comment on that, Mary. You know, we actually had 2 executive sessions scheduled. With the second executive session, it does involve your town administrator, and any employee who's a subject of a personnel matter executive session has the right to request that it be done in public. And so Lisa's basically asked that we discuss this in public. So I basically had left the executive session on the agenda just in case anybody had changed of heart, just to make sure it was still there as an opportunity. But really, we're only going to be having the first executive session, legal advice. And then assuming that, Lisa, you're still ready to discuss things in public, we'll actually not be doing the second executive session, and we actually won't be doing item 12, because that was to take action on the second executive session. So we'll just be going right to item number 13, which is just a public discussion of a personnel matter. So,
Okay. Okay,
the motion would basically be just for the first executive session on your list.
so I will be looking for a motion from someone to go into an executive session. And the topic of the executive session will be to hold a conference with the town's attorney to receive legal advice on specific legal questions pursuant to Colorado Revised Statute, section 24-6-402, parentheses 4, parentheses B. Concerning legal issues related to an employment matter. So I'd like to have that motion, please, from someone,
I'll make that motion.
and I'd like a second.
Second.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, so we have Rowe and Swisher. And Cobb. So I'd like to now have a vote. All in favor?
Okay.
Is anyone,
Aye.
is anyone opposed? Okay, so we have 2/3 of the quorum present has voted yes. And so we will be going into an executive session. Should I do the introduction now or just take a break now?
Usually do that during the executive session, I believe, so we can just take the break now
Okay,
and recess if you'd like.
great. Okay, we'll have like a 7-minute recess.